In one of the cheap bars, two men react aggressively to the appearance of the biker Benny and order him to take off his jacket with the insignia of the biker club, the Vandals of Chicago. Otherwise, he will deeply regret it. Benny declares that he will never do it voluntarily, and the drunken patrons decide to teach the daredevil a lesson. They attack and beat the biker, but Benny, not used to giving up, fights back fiercely, stabbing one of the men in the face with a knife, after which he is struck on the head with a shovel. Kathy is a young and naive girl, very decent and well-mannered. She never gets involved with bad company until one day in 1964, her friend invites her to a club where bikers gather. Kathy is shocked by the oppressive atmosphere inside, filled with half-naked drunk men. Shyly avoiding intrusive stares, she lends her friend some money and wants to leave the bar as soon as possible, but suddenly she notices Benny. He doesn't look like the other rough patrons, and Kathy instantly falls in love with him at first sight. When Benny sits next to her, the girl struggles to control her emotions and still rejects him, because she already has a boyfriend. After that, she meets Johnny, the founder of the biker club, who assures her that the place is safe, and despite the behavior of his drunk friends, they pose no threat to her. Feeling uncomfortable in such company, Kathy hurries toward the exit and senses how the drunk visitors manage to stare her up and down and even touch her several times. She wants to wait for the bus at the stop, but gets frightened by a crowd of men who come outside, fearing that the day might end in disaster. The girl agrees to leave with Benny on his bike. Soon, a group of motorcyclists catches up with them, and Kathy finally realizes they are not a threat. The biker club turns out to be nothing more than a modest refuge for local outsiders who desperately need companionship and the spirit of freedom. That night, Benny gives Kathy a ride home, which clearly doesn't please her boyfriend. Instead of leaving, Benny parks across the street from her house and spends the whole night there, which leads to a quarrel between Kathy and her boyfriend. Eventually, they break up. Only after her ex leaves does Benny approach the house and invite Kathy on a date. Their mutual feelings and the rapid start of their relationship lead to the two getting married just a month later. Despite the major changes in his personal life, Benny continues to be a troublemaking biker constantly chased by the police, who try to fine him for speeding and running red lights. The elusive rider almost escapes the police, but the gas tank runs empty at the worst possible moment, and he is arrested and temporarily released on bail. Johnny is shocked by the reckless behavior of the club member, but doesn't judge him, because Benny simply loves freedom and strives for it at any cost. Johnny understands Benny's desire for freedom like no one else, and eventually he founds the first biker club in the United States. Johnny himself is not a bad man or a criminal. He has a wife, 2 wonderful daughters, and an official job as a truck driver. He and his friends even participated in motocross competitions and wanted to achieve something significant in the sport. But his best friend didn't support the idea. As a result, the group of riders splits into 2 factions. Some continue to compete in sports events, while others become bikers who value freedom and the ability to spend time carelessly in a loud, cheerful company. Initially, the Vandals of Chicago Club consists of 12 bikers, including the mechanic Kel, the slightly odd Zippo, the loyal friend and leader's assistant Brucey, the man who loves to eat insects nicknamed Cockroach, and other men. For a long time, everything in the club goes well, but gradually the members begin to change, transforming from simple men escaping routine life into real criminals who threaten the safety of the city's residents. The first to disturb the peace is a big guy named Jack, who challenges Johnny, deciding to take his place as leader. The others do not want such responsibility and support Johnny, but Jack insists that a similar biker club should appear in one of the neighboring states, sharing with them the same banner of the Vandals. Johnny and Jack decide to settle their dispute in a fight, in which the leader barely wins, breaking the big guy's finger and biting his leg. After that, Johnny finally agrees for the biker club to open new chapters in other states, not realizing what it will lead to in the near future. Seeing crowds of confident bikers on the streets, many townspeople begin to look up to them and try to become like them. Among these dreamers is also a group of ordinary hooligans who start stealing parts from expensive cars. Because of this, bikers soon begin to cause fear among people, and most residents prefer to stay away from them. At one of the Sunday picnics, the only one who dares to approach them turns out to be a biker from another gang. He starts an argument over a scratch on his motorcycle, and Johnny tries to resolve the conflict peacefully. Unlike the leader, Benny dislikes the outsider's arrogance and decides to beat him up. Only after the glass shatters do the bikers finally realize that they have nothing to fight over, since they are all united by a shared passion for motorcycles. The next stage in the transformation of the biker club into a criminal gang comes with a conflict involving Benny. When two drunken cafe visitors attack him, he defends himself and wounds one of them in the face with a knife. Deciding to avenge his friend, the second man hits Benny on the head with a shovel and badly injures his leg. At that moment, Benny breaks down in tears for the first time in his life because he is terrified that his leg might be amputated. Benny begs Kathy to help save his leg so that he can ride a motorcycle again. When Johnny learns what happened, he and his friends come to that very cafe and demand the names of those who attacked Benny. Getting no answer, Johnny orders the attackers to be beaten so severely that they can never walk again, and then he burns the cafe to the ground. The police and firefighters only watch from a distance, afraid to come closer or arrest anyone from the gang. After surgery and being discharged from the hospital, Benny lives in a hotel because he cannot climb the stairs to get home. Kathy supports her husband until Johnny suggests taking a weekend trip to another state. His wife is annoyed by this, since Benny's leg is still in a cast and he can barely move. She decides to talk to Johnny and asks him to kick her husband out of the club, but receives a rude refusal. Meanwhile, the younger generation of bikers continues to break the law and grows more violent with each passing day. One of the local boys, who dreams of becoming a real biker, almost kills his own parents. After that, he leaves home and forms a group of aggressive followers. A few days later, Johnny and his friends go on another picnic. Despite Kathy's protests, she has to accompany Benny to meet his friends because he refuses to give up his dream to ride a motorcycle and hang out with members of the biker club. There, they meet Sonny, a strange biker from another state who came only to beat up Cal. Realizing he has found good company, Sonny gives up the fight and even joins the Vandals. At the same time, Johnny invites Benny for a private conversation and tells him that he will make him his successor as soon as he steps down as the head of the biker club. Soon, an event occurs that forever turns the biker club into a real criminal gang. Brucey, Johnny's right-hand man and the ideological inspirer of the Chicago Vandals, gets into a car accident. Some careless driver backs out onto the road, causing Brucey's motorcycle to collide with the car, and he dies. The bikers want to bury Brucey with honor. But at the funeral, the dead man's parents spit in Johnny's face, blaming him for what happened that evening. The bikers go to a bar to drink to their fallen friend. There, they are already awaited by members of a new gang led by a young man who dreams of joining the Vandals. However, Johnny rejects the arrogant and treacherous guy who is willing to betray anyone for his own benefit. Taking this as an insult, the man attacks Johnny from behind, but is immediately defeated and knocked out cold. A year later, the biker club changes even more, completely transforming into a criminal organization. More and more suspicious people begin to join, hooligans and petty criminals among them. The gang members commit increasingly serious crimes, and many of their parties end in violent fights. One day, Cockroach announces that he wants to leave the club to become a motorcycle police officer. The newcomers do not like this idea, and they brutally beat the man. Benny takes Cockroach to the hospital but leaves his wife unattended for a while. During this time, a group of drunken bikers attempts to assault Kathy, and only Johnny manages to save her from violence. Soon after, Cockroach personally asks Johnny to let him leave the gang. The leader gives no answer, but that night, he and Benny break into Cockroach's house, and Johnny shoots him right in the leg. However, the leader does this intentionally so that Cockroach can finally leave the gang. Witnessing all this horror, Benny becomes completely disillusioned with the now utterly corrupted biker club and leaves alone in an unknown direction. Sometime later, the leader of a rival gang joins the Vandals in another state and challenges Johnny for leadership. Realizing that the fight will be with knives, Johnny says nothing to his wife or children. He only says goodbye to Kathy, who is deeply worried about her husband heading off to an unknown place. At night, Johnny arrives at the site of the duel, but instead of fighting with knives, his opponent suddenly pulls out a firearm and kills the leader. The other gang members hide in their cars out of fear, and none of them even try to avenge their fallen leader. After this brutal execution, the treacherous rival becomes the new head of the Vandals, and thus ends the golden era of the bikers. The Vandals turn into ruthless criminals who control prostitution, drug trafficking, and illegal gambling. They cold-bloodedly kill anyone who stands in their way. Only a few of the original members of the biker club remain in the gang. Most give up their criminal lives. Zippo becomes a movie theater barker, and Cal gets a job as a construction worker until he suffers an accident. Cockroach becomes a police officer, and Zeke leaves the country, earning a living by catching shrimp. Benny takes what happens the hardest. After learning about Johnny's unfair and treacherous execution, he immediately returns home, finding comfort only in the arms of his beloved wife. Not wanting to continue living in the same city, the family moves to another state. Benny becomes an auto mechanic and never rides a motorcycle again. It seems that he has become a happy family man, but in his eyes, one can still see the longing for the old days of the biker club. That is where the film ends.